Hey there, it's author and attorney Kelly O'Connell of Knockout Radio. I enjoy current stories, weird news, arts, and politics. So stop by often, and I'll try to keep you guessing on what the latest story is. Thanks for joining me today. And today's story is about the weirdly sad policies we are having to labor under and adapt to because Biden fell in love with sprint donkeys. What do I mean by that? It is an ironic or sarcastic way of saying that his administration, although it was coming in, as you recall, to get unity, make peace across the country after Trump, it's really as far left as humanly possible. And so this means ideas and plans and policies that are destined to fail. They sound nifty, but they are very shifty, and they're just failure incarnate. And I'll get into a little weird news for you later on some of the meaning of tattoos, prison tattoos for you. All right. So the story, which I'm recording tonight, which will be on Canada Free Press tomorrow, my lead title, Leftists Breed Sprint Donkeys in Competition for Policies, as I've just explained, and then reality must be the measure of American policies. Sprint donkeys. Pondering the complete disconnect between current leftist policies and reality, suddenly an odd image appeared before my disillusioned eyes like a mirage. And these Biden policies are so poorly conceived, they're like a sprint donkey trying to compete with racing horses for the Triple Crown. Or like trying to run a Lamborghini off of glue, Elmer's glue. Think about that. How successful would such a breeding program be for sprint donkeys? Probably as effective as haughtily reestablishing COVID restrictions en masse during a virus spike, while contemporaneously or at the same time importing hundreds of thousands of infected illegals, then dropping these off across America without informing the host cities. In other words, and that's what they're doing, by the way, in other words, predictable asinine failure results. And so are most Biden policies ill-conceived, failed, and foreknown as ineffective. And don't forget that in the midst of all this stuff, and they just had pictures of the bridge in Texas where there were something like, they had some incredible, I can't even remember the number. It was 10,000 or it was more people underneath this bridge that are waiting to come into America, or actually they were in America and they were waiting to get processed. And they figured that probably 20% of these illegals that are getting dropped off across America are COVID positive. And they say they come in, they hear them coughing, getting sick and everything. And so about 2 million people have crossed illegally. And now the Biden administration is doing everything to get out of the policies that would hold these people across the border, or at least put them in custody. The latest one is they are using this new protocol to take ICE completely out of it. And another story came up saying that there are NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, that are being put in place to call the shots. So not only is the government not calling the shots, or the bureaucracy, but non-government workers are calling the shots, and they're all far leftist, so you can imagine what kind of things that they're deciding to do. They want to bring every man, woman, and child that shows up. They'd like to get 10 or 20 million more illegals in here before they can get amnesty going. And the surprising thing is they're not even getting the identity of these people. They're not giving them any paperwork. They're just flying them or driving them across the country and dropping them off in cities and towns who don't know they're coming and who don't have the resources to take care of them. And so they have videos of these people in public parks washing their clothing out in public, Or maybe it's in people's backyards. I really don't know. Maybe it's in the countryside, but there's no place for them. So you're telling me that is a generous way to treat strangers, right? So now I ask, is there room for a zombie on Mount Rushmore? So what's the reason for Biden's failed policies that are so numerous you can't even mention them all? Well, consider this. First of all, they changed all of Trump's policies that were effective. So number one, shoving that up, Trump, showing him he's not special, showing him he's rejected. At the same time, though, causing widespread failure. Now, why would you do that? Well, why do you think they do it? The more failed America is, and you can see it in these cities across the nation where there have been rioting and there's still burned up buildings and there's boarded up windows and there's the sense that you don't want to go downtown, done in the name of BLM and Antifa. And then there is this kind of sense that we're living in a new America and the old standards don't work anymore. So you want to give people the sense that they're a stranger in a strange land and that all bets are off, right? And then you can bring in other changes and they're so kind of knocked back on their heels that it's harder to fight, right? So far left Democrats believe such poisonous policies will bring their utopia closer, with frightened voters herding together like petrified yaks. You know how yaks get together in a snowstorm and they back up to one another to retain warmth and everything. Well, it's working, friends. Given support of Biden amongst independents has dropped, get this, 18% since April. Can you imagine that? The average nonpartisan is not feeling any love for our zombie in chief, who's on his last legs anyway, as you know. Now, there is around us a suffocating culture of hatred. Across the U.S., a culture of oppressive thought control, speech codes, and brainwashing exists and enervates the most resilient, takes the energy away from. The idea that our goal as the world's premier republic should be making sure nobody here is offended, whatever offended means, you realize there's no probably clear definition, is patently absurd. Worse, and we would have never taken the world over the way that we did with our culture, with our panache, with our capitalism, with our love, with our helpfulness, if we were controlled by the tiny group of people in every culture that are dissatisfied and complain. Now, worse than that, social media is being directed by the democratic fascists to control the right. The ban was originally, as you recall, used on Trump. And now censorship is uncoiled. It's uncorked against anybody who steps out of line. Worst is the sense that all previously verboten or illegal or disenfranchised or unpopular or wrong, unethical, immoral behavior, whatever you want to call it. The idea that all previously wrong behavior is now roundly celebrated gives our society the surreal sense that we're living in an upside-down world. And, you gotta walk on eggshells everywhere. You can't be open and honest and free because, if you make one tiny mistake, you're toast. Now, how's that a better culture? I understand that Me Too movement brought some good elements to it, but how is woke bringing a better culture? Where one tiny group of people gets to decide what everybody else can talk about, what they can say and what they can't say. So my argument is truth must lead in all of these things. We know it's true that there should be free speech because within the free speech is truth. Truth is allowed, and also lies and falsehoods, but you can bring people up to know the difference if you protect every person. If you do speech codes, if individuals can't talk about certain subjects, how are you ever going to learn about them? What's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad? And the left still believes in right and wrong and good and bad. It's just that the bad is whatever conservatives believe. So while our precious zombie in chief is nearing collapse, his minions, his helpers, conceive one ruinous program after another, as I was just explaining, where they're giving up energy independence. We shut down the Keystone Pipeline. We shut down government leases for oil drilling. We tried to shut down, the governor of Michigan tried to shut down another pipeline. And then, as you recall, the pipeline in the east that brought most of the oil in the east, that was shut down too. And so I think that, you start to fiddle around with the private economy, the private businesses. You shut things down. That oil was coming from Canada, our best number one trading partner, and now we're having to import oil. How does that make us stronger? How does it make the world a better place? Trump had achieved energy independence for the first time in like 50 years. Deficit spending that's creating record inflation. Funding Iran's world weapons program, which are then used to shoot rockets into our number one ally in the Middle East, Israel. Opening the border to all comers. Biden's decisions augur American collapse if not halted. Our only measure for policies must be success, veracity, and truth, because leftists flail under the predictable conviction that all fundamentalists labor under, which is that only if their complete and unfettered ideas were applied, utopia would soon blossom in the broad sunlight. And I know that that's why you have a democracy. You have two groups that are both putting in their opinion on policies so that we don't have a radical set of ideas from just one group. So, my friends, I predict that their racing donkeys are ready to fail because they've already failed. As soon as Biden's open border illegal sparked a COVID relapse, he should have shut it down pronto. Instead, terrified Americans fear another 2-year shutdown may be looming because Biden has kept that border open and let all the illegals in, while Nancy Pelosi is threatening people with arrest at the Capitol if they don't wear masks. See, it's this whole dog and pony show. It's kabuki theater. It is absurd. Truth standards means continual testing and tweaking, being committed to what reality shows us. But instead, Biden and his team of sprint donkeys plan to challenge American thoroughbred ideas. President Zombie Biden is discovering what always results from far leftism. So, what always happens when you take out radical ideas? There's failure, consummate failure. Pray for our Republic friends, as it's bound to worsen before it gets better and light shines to cast out these political demons, as Dostoevsky wrote in his famous and brilliant book, The Political Demons. They must be driven to the farthest darkness with whimpering, baleful cries and the gnashing of their ridiculously ill-fitting dentures. All right, I've got a little weird news for you here. 15 prison tattoos, and this is from corrections1.com. Corrections for corrections officers. Here is what different tattoos in jail mean. Prison. 1488, where the numbers 14 or 88 on their own, stand for supremacist Nazi inmates. And so, anyway, I will not get into why they mean that. It's a little obscure, but cobwebs. You see somebody with cobwebs on their elbow? Lengthy prison time. They're in there so long, the spiders are making cobwebs on them. And so, teardrop. Now, there's a lot of rumors about teardrops. The most widely recognized, perhaps, of all prison tattoos. A teardrop that's just an outline can symbolize attempted murder. It can also mean that one of the inmates' friends was murdered and that they're seeking revenge. Teardrop has been popularized by rappers and stuff, but could it ever mean the person's just a baby? All right, here is the 5-point crown. Latin Kings Gang, biggest Hispanic gang in the U.S. based out of Chicago, and often accompanied by ALKN, which stands for Almighty Latin Kings Nation. 3 dots anywhere on the body represents mi vida loca, or my crazy life. Not associated with any gang, but the gang lifestyle itself. And sometimes it's associated with the Trinity, but not often. All right. Now there's 5 dots. 4, it looks like dice with the 5 coming up. 4 in the corners and 1 in the middle. And that represents time done in prison, or a long time in prison, between the 4 dots, which are the prison walls. Clock with no hands obviously means doing a lot of time. AB, Aryan Brotherhood, and Aryan Brotherhood, or Nazi symbols, or SS bolts. Now, the Brotherhood makes up 1% of inmate populations, but they're responsible for 20% of murders inside of U.S. prisons, so be careful. Norteño, or Norte, represents Nuestra Familia gang, associated with Hispanic gangs in Northern California. The letter N, a sombrero, Norteña, or the number 14. I'll symbolize these guys. La Aim, L-E, or pardon me, L-A, and the new word E-M-E, or M, is the symbol of the Mexican Mafia, one of the largest and most ruthless prison gangs in America. M13, you've probably heard of it. It comes from the El Salvatore Mara Salvatrucha gang. Started here in L.A. with El Salvadorian immigrants, and MS-13 is across America. It's brutal, and they deal drugs and do child prostitution. Now, playing cards represent a guy or a lady who likes to gamble, especially popular in Russian prisons. And EWMN stands for evil, wicked, mean, nasty. Not a gang, but just a statement about the person who has them. Sociopathic type attitude, possibly. Cross on the chest, found in Russian prisons. Chest tattoos symbolize a prince of thieves. A high-ranking Russian convict will use this to indicate himself. An ACAB, all cops are bastards, and that's British. So, all right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I really enjoyed hanging out with you. Kelly O'Connell here. Would you consider subscribing or hitting the thumbs up on this video? And we'll be back. I missed a couple of days, but I'll be back with you now. And wish you only the very best day. And I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.